Question for you today is how much time are you on stage versus how much time in your life you are off stage? As in, how much time do you perform versus how much time do you get to just relax and be yourself? So today is Saturday, and I've had a really busy week. I've been doing lots of videos. I've been doing lots of audio voiceovers for kind of games for a course I'm doing, and I'm taking, and I'm tired today. So my brain's a bit slow, but I've got this live audition style call at the moment, and it turns out it's going to be a bit later than I intended. So here I was sort of set myself up. I did my warm ups. I did singing a song. I was doing some voices, and then I was like, hang on a second, this is going to take longer. I'm going to be in the waiting room for a bit longer, and had to make a decision. Do I stay on stage in my on stage persona for 20 minutes or something, or do I go off stage and relax and then risk kind of not having the energy to go in? So I'm recording this video instead. But it's a decision that we always have to make, and a lot of us, I think, don't know that we're making this decision. So I'm going to look at three things today. I'm going to look at Erving Goffman, who is a sociologist. I was going to say a sociopath there. I had to check there. Sociologist, two different things completely. And I'm going to look at masking, and I'm going to look at Disney. So let's get into Erving Goffman. So as a voice, teacher, I'm often working with people literally on stage. So how do they show up in an acting role or in I don't know, it could be a customer service thing in a business, or it could be on stage doing a presentation, or it could be loads of different things. As I say, my brain's a bit quiet today because I'm tired. But basically, okay, I've derailed myself. Erving Goffman. Who's Erving Goffman? Let me just talk about that. Oh yeah. So he talked about this in 1956, he talked about in a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. He developed this thing called dramaturgy theory, which I quite like as a person who looks into masking. And it basically looks at how people in their lives either show up front stage or on stage, performing this kind of idealized life, perhaps, the kind of keeping up with the Joneses type idea, or backstage, like in their private lives, where they can relax. Can they be themselves? So that's an interesting kind of sociological look that kind of recognises that I think we all do this to an extent, but we don't always think about it. And when we're actors, we know we're on stage or off stage because we're literally on stage or off stage. But I think when we turn up as people, we don't think about the fact that sociologically everyone is doing this. So it's a brilliant book to have a look at. Erving Goffman's The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. I'm not going to go massively into that theory. I think it's good enough to know what it is. But let's look at masking. So this is an area that I'm interested in, neurodivergent masking in particular, but masking shows up in loads of different ways, not just because of particular neurotypes. And that's when you're being required to present yourself in a particular way for safety reasons, really. So it's not safe to show up in one environment. So you can't show all of your kind of ADHD traits at work in front of customers, because then they might not buy from your company, for example. And one of the key things I think in this way of thinking about on stage, off stage with masking is how much time are you on stage versus off stage? How much time are you restricting yourself from being your full self? And if it's more than you're allowing yourself rest, that's when there's real difficulties can happen. So, for example, for me during COVID, so that remember we all kind of in the COVID-19 pandemics, everyone had to stay at home. Everyone was working at home. I didn't realise at the time, but I was unmasking during the day because I worked at home, and my partner at the time went out to work. So I got a load of time to be on my own, making lots of noise in the house and just being myself. But for me, specifically, during COVID-19, my partner was then in the house the whole time. And I didn't realise, but there were sort of subtle things that I did to kind of just to avoid myself being annoying, not singing at the top of my voice, or not making tons of noise, not being, disruptive or whatever. Disruptive is the thing you say to ADHD people. And I didn't realise that during COVID, I was therefore basically masking, to a degree, some particular behaviours 24 hours a day. And that was really, really tiring, and I actually had a health issue at that time that I think at the time was based on that. It was just because I didn't realize that I was just basically holding on to my mask the whole time, because I couldn't, be annoying around my partner at the time. We didn't know this. It was all subconscious, but looking back, I'm like, I was masking all the time to an extent. No wonder that happened. And the third thing is Disney. So Disney is one of these companies that, maybe one of the only companies, maybe not, but it's a famous company for having looked at this front stage, backstage way of being within their parks. So they've got, characters. Everyone's a character in Disneyland, and literally, and you come out, and you're Aladdin, or you're Wally. Well, no, Wally's a robot, I think, but you're Snow White or whatever. And when you're front stage, when you're they've got a literal corridors backstage, I think underneath the parks, as far as I've heard. I don't know. But then when they come out, they have to be on. They have to be that character. But they can go through the doors into the backstage area, and they can stop, and they can be themselves, and they can relax. And that's something that customer-facing companies kind of really, I think, should think about these sort of things, because nobody is how they are when they're with a customer, in their everyday life. You have to drop away some behaviors. You have to present yourself in a certain way. Excuse me, sir. Hello, how are you? Have you, we don't talk like that in the rest of life, but we have to turn it on. And if someone is doing that sort of thing all the time, then it can get really tiring. So having this kind of switch between those environments is really, really helpful, I think, for people in businesses, but particularly if you've got someone who is masking, then who's perhaps neurodivergent, because that's my research area. If you've got someone that masks at work and then also extra masks in front of customers, because the customer display rules is a thing, apparently. So you'll have customer display rules, they'll add to their masking, but then they go into the office and then they have to mask anyway because they're masking their traits. And that can be extremely tiring. And people don't realize that there are some people in the business who are not releasing their mask in the office and things, and that can be one of those dynamics that's just not spoken about, but bubbles up in the research. So there you go. Those three kind of looks at this idea of when are you on stage and when are you off stage in life, and are you giving yourself enough time to be off stage to recoup your energy, so that when you're on stage, whatever that means for you in your life, that you can do it with your full energy. And that is it for today. That's all the things I was going to say. If you're interested in voice videos, this channel has voice videos. You can sign up to this channel. You can, I say, hit the bell icon. I'm not even sure whether it's true anymore that exists. It's just a thing I've heard people say on videos in YouTube. You can do whatever you want. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Anywhere else, I don't know. I have a Substack. I don't write to that very often, but there's loads of things. And yeah, have a good day, and make sure you get some time to be off stage and to be your kind of scrappy self. See you later.